Hi there, my friends. So I just got this in the mail. A very generous friend on YouTube had gotten this deck and said, you know, I'm not quite feeling it. I might sell it, but do you want it? You know, they offered me the opportunity to take a look. And boy, oh boy, I had not heard of this deck. I probably should say, it's in the title obviously, but this is the Occuli Occulati Tarot, which I just looked on the website is the term for the sleeping eyes. Let me see if I can actually get over there really quickly without destroying everything. Did I close? No. The Occuli Occulati Tarot. The tarot is named for the closed eyes of the dreaming figures that populate its hermetic universe. And yeah, it's really something. So I wanted to do a video and show this. I looked at the website. There are copies available at the time of this, but evidently it was a very limited edition of 900. So I don't know how many have sold, but I did go and look, and there are copies available on the website, which I will try to remember to leave below. But if you Google Occuli Occulati Tarot, you'll find it. So the artist is Polish, and I won't even begin to try to assume I can pronounce the name. But I have never seen a deck like this. First of all, it's huge. Here's another large deck. This is the Moonchild. And, you know, you can see how much bigger it is than this, which is a fairly large card. And then here's something more typical for tarot. So it's giant. We're going to see when so I've done a walkthrough of this already on my own. I just got it in the mail and I opened it up and just immediately was so bowled over by it. I just needed to share it. So I'm going to open it up. Really, like, this is a tuck box, but it feels really nice. The cards are in here really tightly. So I did notice that putting them back in the box was a little tricky. And then it came with a certificate of authenticity. So this is 327 out of 900. I don't want to damage the box at all. And it's really something. You know, one of the things I say is that I don't generally buy decks anymore unless I feel like they're going to fill a void in my collection. Well, this certainly, I've never seen anything like this before. So here's the back. The cardstock is really yummy. It's 400, what does it say on the website? 400 GSM. And it, like you've seen, it's huge. And there are no titles on any of the cards, but the artwork, I can see it not being for everybody. I can see why folks would not get along with this. But as soon as I took it out of the box and realized what I was seeing, I just felt this really kind of emotional eruption, which is a weird thing to say. Just, you know, I was just sort of experiencing the art in such a way, and it's rare that I have that feeling anymore, because I was just thinking today, like, oh, I kind of miss the feeling of getting a new deck and being surprised by it, which is so rare these days. And I was thinking about the first time I looked at the Waitesmith, at my old original Rider-Waite-Smith tarot pack, and I was sort of longing for the experience. And I didn't even register it. Like, it popped into my head, and it floated away just as soon as it came. And then, so just sort of oddly, it wasn't the same experience, of course, going through this, but like, there was a connection to that emotional resonance that I felt the first time I ever held a deck of tarot cards, which was the original Rider-Waite-Smith tarot pack, which everyone hates. So I want to walk through this with you. You know, I don't even know what to say about it. Like, it's so sort of like, breathtaking. Now, there are a few caveats, I'll say. It's a very masculine deck in some ways. There are women in it, but where I think we're used to these days seeing, in tarot anyway, either a fair amount of balance or a skew toward the feminine. This is actually skewed a little bit toward the masculine in terms of physicality. But you know, I mean, it was really interesting to see, and it was a surprise to see, and that's neither here nor there, but I think for folks, you know, it's interesting to know. There are no titles on any of the cards, but I think by and large, once the deck is shuffled, you'll be able to tell. I think the only thing that will be a little confusing are the pages, and telling the pages between some of the knights. And the other thing is that this is a huge deck, and I have small hands, so we'll see how it shuffles as I finish the walkthrough. But it's rare that I was sort of like, oh my god, I have to share this with people. Like, I just want to share people the experience of looking at these cards. So yeah, so here's the Fool. And the trumps, the keys are all black and white, and then the pips, the minors, are have washes of a unifying color throughout. So the pentacles, for example, are green. Black and white and green. So that makes it easy to sort of see what suit you're looking at right out of the gate. There's a real classic, artistically classic, masterful sort of style, but there's like a muscularity to the art, which again was super surprising. This feels very much like an art deck, and certainly the size of the cards speaks more to the image than a usability. But I do think, like the Luminous Void, which is another really large deck that I like, you know, I think you can make it work, certainly. So, all right, so here's the Fool. Here's the Magician. And I don't even know if you're going to see in the video, like, how kind of amazing the fluidity, the chi of the art is. So it's a Waite-Smith influenced deck, I would say, with nods to Marseille and pre-Waite-Smith styles. So here's the High Priestess, and very much sort of a combination of Marseille with the sort of Papus, but also the trees and the moon sort of nod to Pamela Coleman Smith's drawing. Here's the Empress. And the Emperor. And the Hierophant, or the Pope. This Lovers card is really unusual and really interesting, and I'm really happy with it. First of all, it's two women central, and then there's some male figures in the back. This sort of dreaming figure. Everyone in the deck is sort of with their eyes closed in sort of a dream state, which I didn't find really all that off-putting. Here's the Chariot, and this feels actually very Lady Frida Harris in a way to me. Again, gender is an interesting thing in this deck. These two Sphinx-like characters of human faces. There's more masculine face here, more feminine here, but they both have breasts. So, you know, there's you know, what we would have called in the past a sort of gender fuck to that. But it's really interesting. This is a beautiful strength card. And a beautiful Hermit. I've talked about this many times. Wheels of Fortunes are never my favorite cards, but I do like this. I can see this being overwhelming for someone, especially for folks who are hyper-visual and really do pull a lot of information from the visual language in a tarot deck. But for folks who, like, for example, the Shadowscapes, I wouldn't say this is any busier than that. There's Justice. Really amazing Hanged Man. Death. The Star. This would be the Devil. The Tower. The Star. I'm sorry. I said the Temperance card was the Star. This is the Star. That previous one was Temperance. Sorry. I love this Moon. The Sun is interesting. There is a child in it, but I don't find it a creepy child, to be honest. This Judgment card, so beautiful. And this World card is really beautiful too. And again, you see there's a slant with Temperance, with the World. There's definitely a slant towards masculine in the trumps, maybe a little bit more, and certainly in the minors than you might notice normally. So the first suit is Wands. And so here's the Ace. Again, no titles. This is the 2. So you can see this has a yellow wash on a lot of these images. 3. And so far you can see all these characters are male, or male sort of adjacent. Eight, 9, 10. And so this is the Page with some giant feet and hands. The proportions of the figures, I can say, are they have, to me, a more expressionistic quality to them. There's some things, like, they're not dramatically off, but they're so subtly off that your eye recognizes something different. Excuse me. So again, that may bother some folks. I find it really interesting. I was so unprepared in a way. Here's the Knight because I really did not see any of the cards. It was just one of those things where this kind person said, "Hey, do you want this?" And I said, "Yeah, why not?" As I do, you know, because when you have the opportunity to see something you wouldn't have, it's always fun. And, you know, it's hit or miss, right? I could have not liked it and said, you know, I'll send it back to you. You can sell it. Here's the Queen. And the King. So now we move into the suit of Cups, which have a blue wash. Here's the Ace. The 2. The 3. So again, these have a male energy to them where you would normally see 3 women in this card in the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition. And I think throughout the suit of Cups, they're all mermaids or mermaid-adjacent figures. Here's the 5. And the 6. 7. 8. 9. And then the 10. Now, as you know, as a gay man, it's sort of interesting to see this card with 2 male figures on it. Of course, they're mermen, but it is, you know, I mean, it's a thing you don't really, you don't necessarily recognize that you're not part of the picture until you see a picture that you're part of. Granted, I'm not a merman and I don't have chiseled abs, you know what I mean? But, you know, you sort of, you take for granted, and I'm sure this happens to other folks who may be people of color or maybe gender queer or whatnot, who you sort of take for granted the Ten of Cups is always a happy, straight family. And then you see a card that's not that is queer in some way, and you go, oh, right, like, that's a picture that I'm supposed to be part of. It's just a really interesting experience. So here's the Page of Cups and the Knight. The Queen and the King. So then we get into the suit of swords, which are pink, which is an interesting choice, I think. This whole suit was upside down when I got it, and I didn't realize until 3 in. And there was something sort of like, oh, there's something kind of appropriate about these cards appearing upside down. I think I fixed them after this one. Yeah, after the 4. So there's the 3. And there's the 4. The 5. Fairly Rider-Waite-Smith right through. 6. 7. 8. It looks like he's holding a pack of cards behind his back. 9. 10. And then this is, I think, the one that made me go, oh, would I know this is the Page or the Knight? But I think then the pages are all standing. So here's the Page of Swords. And then the Knight of Swords. Riding what appears to be a dolphin. The Queen. With a severed head. You go, girl. And the King. I like the sort of Louis the 14th, maybe that's not the right period, but quality to these courts. And then finally the suit of pentacles, or discs, or coins. It doesn't have a name. Here's the Ace. The 2. One thing you'll notice about the male figures in this deck is that they're rather hirsute. They're pretty hairy. Also an interesting choice. You know, there's like a shame about that, and I think this artist sort of depicting that is really interesting. They also are somewhat off-human in a way. Like, you can see it in the shapes and the postures and the clothings. There's the 6 and the 7. There's the 8, the 9, the 10, and here's the Page, the Knight, the Queen, with a little sort of Elizabethan drag, and then the King. So those are the cards. Again, I had no idea what to expect, so really an interesting experience to walk through it for the first time. And so I'm going to shuffle it now, or attempt to. I guarantee there's no way to riffle shuffle this. It's also really heavy, you know, for a deck of cards. But given the card stock, there's like the right amount of glide between them. So though I imagine it will take rather a heavy amount of shuffling, I think. And while the weight is pretty impressive, it's not as difficult as I thought it might be, he says as he drops the cards again and again. feel like this cardstock is similar in slide in texture to Benabel's deck. Let's do this and we'll pull some cards this way. So there's Justice. There's the Five of Wands. And there's the Four of Wands. Is that the 4? This might be the 7. 1, 2. Oh gosh, I don't know. So that's interesting. I can't actually tell. I know that's the 5. I know that's not the 4. This must be the 7. Or the 8. I'm gonna say it's the 8. So that's something to know. Here's the Wheel. The Lovers. This is the 7. So if you're familiar with Rider-Waite-Smith, it'll be a little bit easier. So what must this be? The 6? No. I think it's the 6. It must be, because he has a laurel wreath. A lot of Wands cards. It's the 9 and the 10. 8. So really, you know, I can see a couple examples of where it might be hard to tell what card's what. But even as I'm going through that, it's just that one card so far that's tripped me up. I've always loved large cards. There's something kind of that feels like tarot, you know, in large decks of cards. That's interesting to me. So yeah, I just wanted to sort of share this with you and sort of look at it together and say, wow, what a stunner, and what an interesting, unusual set of images. And you know, I can see using this as soon as I identify which of the cards that one is. Yeah, so that's a look at the Occuli Occulati tarot by the Polish artist whose name I will not attempt to butcher. Be well, and I'll talk to you soon.